Καλημέρα σε όλες και όλους. Τρίτο στη σειρά το συγκεκριμένο webinar. Κλείνουμε έτσι αυτή την όμορφη ξενάγηση στα διάφορα εργαλεία που έχουν αναπτυχθεί στο πλαίσιο του ερευνητικού προγράμματος, του ευρωπαϊκού προγράμματος Μέσω Europe. Σήμερα έχουμε κοντά μας τον συνάδελφο Μπράνκο Μάροβιτς. Θα σας πει συνάδελφος Αλεξή λίγα πράγματα για το background και τη δουλειά που έχει κάνει ο συνάδελφος στο πρόγραμμα, αλλά και γενικότερα με τι ασχολείται. Και θα μιλήσουμε θα δούμε ένα εργαλείο που έχει αναπτυχθεί προκειμένου να βοηθήσει στην ανάπτυξη πολιτικών αποθετηρίων, πολιτικών που είναι πιο μηχαναγνώσιμες και έτσι φέρουν αρκετά χαρακτηριστικά που βλέπουμε στην ανοιχτή επιστήμη και κυρίως στις fair αρχές, fair, findable, accessible, interoperable και reusable. Με αυτά λοιπόν να σας καλωσορίσουμε και σήμερα να σας καλημερίσουμε και να ξεκινήσουμε σιγά σιγά με το συγκεκριμένο σεμινάριο, τη συγκεκριμένη εκδήλωση.
Ευχαριστούμε, Έλλη. Λοιπόν, θα πούμε τώρα λίγα λόγια για τον Μπράνκο, το σημερινό μας ομιλητή. So, welcome, Branko. We are very pleased to have you. We are very pleased to have you with us today. So, a few words about Branko's background. Branko Marovic received his bachelor, master's, and PhD degrees in computer engineering and computer science from the University of Belgrade, where he's currently the Deputy Director of the university's Computer Center. He also worked at the UCLA Radiology Science Department and taught postgraduate courses at the University of Belgrade School of Electrical Engineering. Branko participated in many framework programs and Horizon projects, and was a project manager of the EU-funded IPA project that implemented hospital information systems in 19 Serbian hospitals and developed a cross-institutional electronic health record platform. Currently, within the framework of Mésω Europe, he leads the work package on open research data management standards, processes, tools, and certification. Furthermore, again, he works on software maturity model and review processes, and also in trusted identity incubator. His interests include health informatics, IT and research infrastructures, seamless data use and visualization, software and service governance, and privacy protection. Branko, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This presentation today is the first time we are using this new deck of slides and all accompanying details. So please excuse me if something goes wrong. Also, many of you have already seen RePol in action, or hopefully used it, or at least some of you. And about 1 year ago, now we did some work on its improvement. Besides repository policy, we added new feature, ability to generate privacy policies, and streamlined, every details, templates that are used, and so on. So I hope that even if you are familiar with the matter, this presentation will be informative to you. As far as I'm concerned, you can interrupt me at any point. Perhaps it's better to explain things early as soon as they emerge, because I think we have sufficient time. But as you please, also at the end of the presentation, we may have further discussion on both what you are about to see and regarding some ideas that you might have, or some wishes for the future development of RePol. So this webinar will help you navigate through RePol and learn how to generate repository policies, privacy policies, and how previously created policies could be updated. It consists of 4 modules. Of course, we will skip the quiz on this occasion, but you can run it yourself if you have access or register to the NIFOS training platform. I would ask Ellie or Alexia to share the link to this presentation in chat if it works for them. After the general information, we will have 2 examples of generation of policies, as I mentioned before, repository and privacy policy, and then how the existing policy could be updated. And because RePol is open source software, you can actually deploy it yourself and customize it to your needs if you have any scenario that is similar to those that I'm about to describe. So, what is RePol? It's a free and open source web application that helps users create and maintain repository and privacy policies for web-based services. It is an application that is extensible in a way that it can be configured to generate any type of policy documents. And in its current configuration, it is targeting repository managers, service providers, and website owners. Why did we extend to those 2 later mentioned groups? Because actually there are much more web-based or similar services and websites which need to have and to establish their own privacy policies. And this scenario is actually simpler than repository policy scenario, but since it's more numerous, we thought it would be quite useful to have something like this. It is currently part of the NIFOS Europe catalog and will be integrated. It will be also in the directory of the EOSC portal. So this is a small and relatively, a service that is not used on everyday basis, but which aims to help in resolving the actual and practical need. We already mentioned the types of wizards that are supported, and let's just mention what we try to achieve with our design. We wanted to make it RePol easy to use, modular in a sense that it could be easily extended, to make it aligned with the current regulations and standards and expectations of its users and the needs of policy makers. It is also a free and open source software. It is respecting your privacy in a sense that it doesn't require any registration and doesn't even permanently save any user data, because you keep your data with yourself. You have to upload it, use it, download it. And its user interface is very, very simple. So it does it by through a step-by-step wizard, which doesn't require any registration. You can create an unlimited number of policies with it. For example, what creation colleagues did, because they centrally administer repositories, they produced several documents of their own, which are basically examples, and then customized them. And then for specific repositories, they simply did search and replace in those documents for the specific repository. So this is also another way to use this thing. The forms in the tool are self-repository in the sense that they provide short, simple, and hopefully clear information, details about what is meant by specific option or question. Also, before you start using a specific wizard, you get some kind of intro where you can read what is necessary on your side in terms of decisions and policy or technical approaches you have adopted information about them, so that you could adequately specify your policy. After you create the policy document, you can manually customize it, integrate it with your repository and your web service, and then later update this draft. However, your manual information will need to be updated manually as well. RePol is modular in the sense that what administrator needs to do is to add a new template for a new policy type. Those templates use simple if-else expressions embedded in those templates, which pop up as predefined clauses in the text or sets of values. And at the application level, you add support for different templates with different configurations of input fields, selection sets, and so on. It is regulated with the current standards because we build our templates after the analysis of representative repository policies, and also after within the NIFOS domain, after some services and the repositories were registered in Agora catalog of NIFOS Europe, we went through those policy documents to see if we have missed something, and we added a few details in RePol. Also, in repository policy, there are two profiles that are offered very early, which are aligned with open door minimum and optimum templates. And so if you select those, you get many of the questions that come later pre-configured, and it will be easier for you to fill in the rest. In line with those policy templates that you may have already seen or used. However, what RePol produces is dynamic and further customizable in comparison to those static templates. We also added options to specify Creative Commons licenses for both metadata and data, and options on harvesting by aggregators, and also the elements that are related to core trust seal, GDPR requirements, and requirements for onboarding in and participation in open source infrastructure. Because what we actually did was we have more than 20 repositories that as institution University of Belgrade manages. So we got a quite of mileage in managing those repositories and learning both about the ideas about our customers, the owners of those repositories, and the external requirements that are related to them. It is open source in a sense that that the site is under CC BY license, while its RePol source code is licensed under the European Union public license, and it's available on GitHub. I already briefly mentioned that RePol does not retain any user-provided data beyond user's browser session. Personal information is stored only for the duration of the use of the service. No identifiable IP address is stored. What does it mean? We log the IP address as it is seen by RePol, but just for statistical purposes, and we don't have any means to link those IP addresses to individuals. So in that sense, even those IP addresses are not personal information. And after you generate your policy, the document that you generate will contain those options, or you can save an XML file containing all choices that you made in all forms. And in that way, you are the owner of your data, and when you come back the next time, you just need to upload it and continue where you previously stopped, or if you completed your job and now you want to update it. The user interface is quite simple. You have a wizard, you have basic information about purpose and use of the document, and then information about feedback and support, and also the related policy documents. Our privacy policy is also generated by the tool itself, of course. So this philosophy is used all the way within the tool itself. Okay, so this is the privacy policy that was created by RePol for RePol, and we also, among the links at the bottom of the start page, we provide methods for feedback. One of them is you can contact us directly, or you can use this survey, the link to which is provided at the start page, which is also used for other two tools that are developed by Athena Research Center, LCT and Rolect. So let's start first with the repository policy. It provides you need to access and launch the wizard, and then provide the information that is grouped in the sections that are listed here, starting from general information, metadata, content, policy on content, submission policy, information about versioning, privacy, harvesting, curation of the data, and also privacy policy section. And at the end, you just save your output, which is either the draft policy or the choices that you have made. So what you need to do is just to create this large orange create policy button, and you what you get is this actually, sorry, I have you then get optional selection, which in this case is not crucial, but you will see it later. And then you see the form where you start with already mentioned general information. What is needed to be known in advance, because otherwise your job will be half done and you will have to return to this form, is to know for the repository policy what type of content in terms of subjects, types of artifacts that are submitted, and languages that are used. What type of content will your repository be for? What are both your and as a repository administrator and the users' rights and responsibilities will be, which are typical things that regularly occur. Then know about access levels and usage rights for the content in the repository, how the content is curated, and then have clarified your plans regarding preservation and other policies, including private data collection and handling, and what third services are used, which is also significant for privacy in a sense of whether you use, for example, Google Analytics. So even if this sounds too abstract to you, you can simply go to this data entry, see the questions, and see for which questions you need additional decisions or to get the answers, and then come back. After you enter all necessary data, you can simply get the document, download it to your computer, get all data that you entered, or start over by clearing the data. The result of this is a template as the start of which we are seeing here, and some pieces which are not standard in the sense that that need to be customized and repository specific are marked with those two do's. So some level of manual editing is certainly required. Now about the privacy policy. Again, the flow is the same. However, now we have a smaller number of sections. Again, general information, the legal part, the information about data collection, because in this case we don't distinguish between metadata and the content of the submissions. Then contact for data protection officer and supervisor, and information about privacy policy updates. Again, we launch the wizard. We get the form, which in many respects looks quite similar to the previous. But again, there are these types of information that are now different. Primarily that needs to be entered. First, those describing the type of private information that is collected by your service for which you want to create a privacy policy, reasons and legal basis for collecting that private information, and third-party services you are using to collect private information, because quite often you integrate with something external or use specific, even internal mechanisms as add-ons to collect additional pieces of information, and then how you handle it in terms of retention, sharing, removal of collected data. And also the final parts are about rights and responsibilities in terms of to whom questions and complaints should be submitted. And again, you save the output and get the privacy policy. In this case, we called our service website. So that's why this title looks like the way it looks. Now, once you have created your policy, you want, regardless of what type of the policy it is, the flow is again quite standard. You open up the wizard, upload the file, change the options, the selections that you previously made, and then you save the output. So first, I'm just wondering why we are not having this file upload button, but anyway, whatever you do, you need to select the policy information you want to the policy type you want to create, to update, and select progress, and then save the output the same way as you did originally. So, but let's see how it looks in practice. So this is pre-recorded video, but it is good because it also provides captions, and because it is optimized to provide you with a quick walkthrough. Okay, so we open up the wizard, and here is this upload or file selection dialog. It's important to click upload and then select the repository type. You see, there is no explanation. We added it later when this was recorded, but now we come to the section where the data are being provided. So you type in your repository name, its address, details like where the manual is, institutional open access policy, renewal intervals, policy date. Here is also open door policy flavor, and then you make selections related to your metadata. As you see, when you select one options, the following options change accordingly. The same for data. And since it is we use CC licenses, we want to mention them and explain them in the policy document, and then we select the subjects of the repository. The common subjects are already available, but you can add a new one in the box at the bottom. For example, we add a custom subject. Then we do the same for languages. Of course, we can customize, remove our choices. So we had the common world languages, and at the bottom of the list, some local languages from NIFOS countries. Then we select the typical types of users of this repository, and we in this case added also engineers as the potential submitters. Then by selecting content type, we already pre-select some item types, but we can refine those by removing or adding new ones. For example, in this case, we added technical reports, and if we want, we can add file size limit. Then we come to versioning section, where we describe whether the records are versioned, whether the links are provided only to the last version, and whether they are to the last version, and whether there are links to between various versions. Then we come to the part which is similar to privacy section, but is more condensed. Methods for collection of the data, options for curation, harvesting and curation, and preservation, where you declare retention period, whether you perform backup, migrate content to new formats, and other typical actions that are done while maintaining a repository. Here is the privacy document that we produced, which is quite useful, and the things that you should consider or customize are marked with red. We can also save XML file which contains the choices that we have made. So in this form, we have a simple file with the selections, but without the generated text. So if we go back and start a new like when we log on after some time, we can upload the file, choose and upload it, and then when we go back to the selection, we will see that the content has been already pre-filled. And in the same way, we create privacy policies, but here there is a number of options describing a legal basis for collecting personal data, what types of legislation you are compliant with, the methods of data collection that you are using. They are typical and quite common and standard ones. And then, as previously mentioned, this description of data types that are being collected, as we had in repository policy. And then the part on web analytics tools. So if we turn off or on analytic tools, this corresponding section will disappear. For example, we opt to use Matomo instead of Google Analytics. Of course, it depends on how our repository is configured, whether we use cookies, whether they are mandatory, if there is a separate cookie policy for the site, and then details about preservation of the data, erasure of the data, and the things that are mandatory by GDPR regarding data protection officer and supervisory contact, typically your national agency for data protection, and whether you want plan to send policy update to your users. All these details fields are actually defined in the configuration. This is just application generated overview of the configuration of the fields that are entered, default values that are marked in green. And this is quite useful if you are not a developer, but you want to use these attributes in the template and customize the template itself, because you know by looking at this, you know what you are having at your disposal, so you can relatively easily create new generators. Now I assume that there aren't that many of those among you who are interested in contributing to RePol further. But anyway, you maybe, if you plan to instance it yourself, you may need to, you would like to need to know some details or what is behind in order to put your trust behind it. So there is a wiki page which provides both basic usage information and quite numerous technical details. Then here is the link to the wiki. You can also suggest new features. As said before, set up your own instance. Give us suggestions for updates of wizards and templates, or propose new topics and new areas of application. So the form definition is available at the very bottom of the form for data entry, where you can inspect it, and here, and those are all options that you see here are actually defined, set up in one XML file. So the new fields can be added or choices could be changed without any programming. The source code is available at GitHub, and you can download it there, and also the basic information is available there. It is, as mentioned, licensed under European Union Public License or 1.2 or later. And we come to the quiz, which is, if you are enthusiastic about learning what you have actually remembered, you could go yourself through it. You already have the I see that there is no link to this presentation, but I will share it right now. So perhaps it's a good moment to, if you are having any questions or comments, that we address them now, and then perhaps we could, if relevant for some of you, we could actually have a live walkthrough of one of the scenarios you would prefer to be shown live.
Thanks so much, Branko. Currently, I don't see any questions posted in the chat, so perhaps we could continue.
Okay, so I will now just go into more details through the privacy policy, because it may be something that could be relevant and useful to many. So let me go there. Okay. So at the first tab, we won't upload anything, because let's imagine that this is the first time we are accessing RePol. Through this wizard, we can navigate by clicking those buttons on the top, or going left and right. So here we want to create a privacy policy. Again, here are details that were mentioned that you need to know before going further. But let's imagine that we already have an idea, or that we at least want to explore what choices we have. So let's call the service my service. We recently went into such details that we even define whether you want to use articles before the name of the service or the owning institution. Something like this. Okay, let's keep the current date as the date of the policy. When it comes to legal basis for collecting the personal data, okay, now I will step a little bit out of the mere topic of RePol. So typically, according to GDPR, there are typically two paths. One is to have users' approval for the collection of her data, which is typically reflected through some kind of written or electronically confirmed contract. Or, you know, you have those notorious I accept dialogues where you accept not only cookies, but sometimes policies. But quite often, especially public institutions, are bound by some legal obligations to collect and process data, for example, about their students, or to report to, for example, state authorities regarding the papers published by the teachers and professors. So you can clearly justify those, but this has to be mandated by the law. And if your lawyers say that there is a legal obligation to collecting the information that you are collecting, you can clearly check this. Besides the written contract, there is this consent that I mentioned, and the third possible option is legitimate interest, which is actually something that is not intrusive, and it's required by the wider legal framework or practicality. I mean, this is something that is may be disputed, so you have to be relatively sensitive and reasonable when you are selecting this option. So whichever of those four options you select, they will be listed in the produced document. When it comes to legislation, you, as a member of the European Union, you definitely need to be compliant with GDPR, but even the services residing in the countries which are not bound by GDPR, and those services are working, collecting the data of EU residents, GDPR should be checked. However, when it comes to national legislation, by default, it is also if you reside in a GDPR country, you should check it, because what although GDPR is regulation and it is something that is valid on the EU territory. Individual countries have their own legislation by which they customize and detail all the rules of GDPR further. So by default, this should be also checked. And then we come to data collection, where there are several methods for it, and some of typical choices are made, but you may also embed other services in your service or link your service. So in that case, you will click services in subdomains. Then we come to the part where you need to declare reasons for oops, my browser just died. So while I am reading the questions, because I see there are some, I will also restart my browser.
As you do, let me help you and read them to you as you do that, Branko.
Okay,
so
thanks.
So first, let's start with the simple one. Should we have an account to Nifos in order to access the slides?
I think so. I'm not sure whether so I will actually suggest or ask the administrator of this Nifos training portal to see if it is possible to make the materials fully, available without any registration. On the other, but for example, for myself currently, I need to log in to this training portal. Please, so you got the link previously, and but you can log in through, if you already have EduGain accounts, meaning your institutional account, which is accessible through EduGain. You can log in using that, or you can use your Google or I think GitHub identities as well. So
and
the second
there
question.
is another attendee saying that they just tried it and they could easily download it without logging in. So that seems to be feasible.
Okay, great.
And then the other question with sub-questions are, if we create our policy, could we retrieve it from the tool? That's the first one. And then the second one is, could we modify the exported policy by enriching it with other functional and non-functional features like software quality attributes, etc.?
Okay. So regarding the first one first, I mean, this applies for any policy in this currently two policy types, not only repository policies. The meaningful scenario is that you initially create your policy with the tool. If you already have pre-written policy, there is, it's a plain text, and the tool itself cannot, you cannot upload that. But if you create your policy and save it, what you will normally get if you not use XML format but save it as a policy, it is XML document, HTML document. Actually, I will show it in a few minutes, which has embedded XML. Which later, when you load it, so you retrieve it, and actually the only way you save your policy is to save on your device. The tool itself does not save anything. it would be quite useful for us actually to see the choices that people typically made so that we could customize further. But on the other hand, we decided to, not insist on that benefit for ourselves, and actually on long-term benefit for the end users, and better to make the tool directly accessible without any user sessions, without persisting any data. So if you want to modify the policy, what you can do is to modify those sections that are already recognized and pre-configured in the template itself. However, what you are also getting is this free text, where you can perform any modifications that you want to do, add various features, so like here mentioned software quality attributes if your repository is, for example, for software, or other characteristics. However, this is something that once the next time you recreate your policy with RePol, you need again to manually apply. So to do so, the best way is to save your draft policy as it was produced by RePol, and then edit the copy. And in the future, when you want to change this update, manually customized policy, then you can make a copy of that earlier version of your policy, update the text, and then decide basically on where the change is larger, whether it was between the draft policy generated by RePol and your original policy, or your original policy and your update, and see the differences. And then once you have done that, you can correspondingly update your new policy. So, for example, one of the easier ways to do so is to apply compare versions in tracking changes if you are using Microsoft Word as the tool. The other option, why I suggested saving the policy, the draft policy, because the next time, for one reason, you won't, you will make sure that you won't erase this XML part of the document, so you can continue where you left off. And more importantly, when you load this into RePol and change some options and create the new draft, then you could compare two drafts and see how the template, actually what has been generated by RePol has changed. So if you previously did manual customizations yourself in the policy document, you could say, okay, instead of applying my changes all over again to the new draft, I will actually consider what has changed in the draft according to either the changes that I made in the parameters or the changes that originate from the improvements of the RePol itself, and then you can decide yourself to update your actual policy accordingly. These changes are typically quite small and relatively isolated. But let me actually, am I sharing the screen.
Yes.
The form where I was. Okay. So, but regarding this question, was it? I mean, the answer was quite long, but I hope it was sufficiently clear. But if you need more, just let me know. Okay, so here we come to reasons for data collection section. Typically, some personal data is required by service operation because of purpose of the service, because it actually really needs to process or publish or whatever do with some personal data or personal contact or whatever the service is for. Then sometimes you want to actually monitor usage, and you like to know patterns of behavior of the users. So it is not only about demographic personal data, but also about your actions. So you, for example, in RePol, we decided not to do this, but you may decide to do it. And another type of the thing, for example, which we added recently to our RePol privacy policy, is that we also collect data for technical support and enhancement on service experience. But what this actually means, we don't collect this information through the basic use of the RePol itself. Instead, we are collecting this data if you write to us, sending email, asking questions, then we keep those details in the archive. We get your name and your email address, so we declare those. Then regarding the types of data collected by the use of the service, here are some basic details which are typically collected by web browsers or application servers, technical platforms that are used to run your service. So you can select those that currently appear, and then you go into details regarding the actual hosting of your service. For example, if you are using a cloud provider, for how long you keep your data, IP addresses, whether you are sharing the data that you collect outside of the European Economic Area or not. And since the users have the rights to be forgotten, you may warn them that data erasure may limit the use of the service. And also whether there is some kind of automatic processing and decision making, for example, using artificial intelligence, which is something that the users should be aware of, because GDPR mandates that the users must be allowed to have a human review of their submission. They cannot be, their fate cannot be decided and decided upon, and they be rejected by machine only. So a human should be the final decision maker. And of course, if there is a sensitive content or you want to limit the users, you can simply state the age, and this will trigger the corresponding paragraph in the policy. And now we come to those contact details for the data protection officer. What is interesting is there is always, in every institution, there should be a DPO named by the management, but here you don't have to name the actual person and provide the personal contacts. You can provide functional name and functional contacts. Of course, in your country, there should be also a similar case at the national or some regional level, where somebody is responsible for to oversee your service. And however, in some countries, for example, in Serbia, we have a separate delegated person for higher education, where we name this function and then say, okay, in Serbia, this institution is data protection officer, sorry, the commissioner for protection of privacy and blah, blah. Here is this inspect part, which provides all the defining details as described, but let's go further after we have filled in this. We should be able to upload to download the file, but as we continued our section entry, we lost this content that was initially entered. So now I think we have it all, and we get the document. So this is the privacy policy file, and the choices that were made regarding reasons for data collection are here. And then depending on the methods of data collection and choices made within that section, you will get the actual details for this. For example, we put 18 years limit, so for that reason we have this children's privacy section in the document. Regarding the national legislation, because you have to refer to your actual additional laws declared by national legislation, and the other responsibilities, you can add them here. What is typically needed is just to name the law which is relevant, so that the users could easily find it or provide even the web address to these laws. And here are the technical details. Of course, there is this footer at the very bottom, which you are very welcome to keep in your policy document, but it doesn't matter even if you remove it. So let's see the source code. It is more or less plain HTML, so you can open it with any tool that is able to maintain HTML, and all details that you have defined are provided through these fields as described using XML. So this is how this service looks like. Okay, I hope this additionally makes it clear. So going back to your questions regarding, for example, if you want to, for example, use RePol as a software repository, if you already have the idea about what kind of attributes or details would need to be kept in the repository, and you think this deserves to be mentioned in the service policy, privacy policy, which may be the case only if not for the technical details regarding, you know, like software names or software version, but about the authors or whatever else is considered as personal information, contacts, and so on. Then please you can do any of several things. One is to simply try to use RePol to draft your repository policy, customize it the way you wish, and then send us your customizations, and if you think they would have a wider applicability. And what we will do is to extend the template to support that subtype of repository, either within the standard repository template or as a custom template for this particular purpose. Depends on the difference. So this is the easiest way to do it, because you would have your policy, we will update RePol, and the next time you come, there will be a small step that you will need to make the choices that correspond to your actual setting. But since we will probably be contacting you regarding that, it shouldn't be difficult as well. But we could do other things as well. For example, we could share with you the template, so you could actually add or suggest the missing the parts that you need within the context of that template. And actually, the last year we had this kind of dialogue with some of you from Cyprus, which helped us improve our templates. You could simply put the comments in the Google Doc with the template. Our crowd colleagues from Croatia did that as well. And then this will be more direct interaction with the tool itself. And the end of that process, you will get something that will be applicable for other instances whenever somebody wants to generate similar type of policy document. So this makes sense if you are custodian for several such repositories or services, so you know your practice, your needs, and you want this feature to be available for you. Or the third option would be to download, install RePol itself, and then manage it fully on your own. It should be relatively easy, but requires some digging into XML and so on. There is no database behind this application. Everything is in configuration. I hope this explained how all the options of the configuration or customization, but as said initially, typical customization, what you need to do is just create a draft policy, do some small changes that are required, and go on yourself with it without any external support, because basically you won't need it. Okay, I have the comment from Maria. Thank you for your positive comments.
Yes.
Are there any other questions or suggestions? We are here also to fish for some feedback, additional feedback, or some proposals to enhance the use of this service. It could be related to those two scenarios, policy and repository, or other types of
There is actually another question. So who is the person who will help us to properly implement these steps in our country, Cyprus? And the second question is, will anyone have central control over what material policies each one uploads?
Okay, there are two parts, not only those sections of the questions, but two perspectives. From the technical point, the University of Belgrade, with at the provided contact email, you have it at the homepage and on the wiki. For all technical details, you can refer to us. On the other hand, when it comes to Cyprus, whether there will be some coordination or mutual support, it's up to you to tell. So perhaps Sylvia or Alexia could give more information about how this should be done. And regarding the uploads, it is not quite clear to me what is uploaded to RePol is lasts only for the duration of the session. So in that sense, there is no control. Nobody can see what is going on in RePol itself. We don't log anything. We don't have any control. It's all yours. When it comes to kind of control of those drafts and their validity, this is more related to this let's say, coordination within the national open science community, where you may refer to this national mechanism. Okay, now you have contacts from Sylvia and Luca for further discussion and probably support on defining your policies. When it comes to using this document, the created document on your website, it is quite trivial. It uses very basic HTML, so whatever style you apply to format headings and plain paragraphs, they will be applied. So you just need to upload your manually edited policy document to your site, link it, and it will be there. It will look decent. The only styles that we have created were for reds for those to-dos, but I don't think should be the problem, particularly since you are supposed to replace those sections with something more meaningful. So what we do in those to-do sections are just fragments of the text that you may make use of, or suggestions about what should be described in those sections.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jorge.
Any other question, maybe? Okay, just to say that the recordings of this webinar and the slides will be shared with you within the next 1 or 2 days, as usual. And also we will leave the contact details of Branko and his team, so you can contact them also for any technical reasons.
Excellent. And I hope that we could also use this recording to share, to offer it to the wider audience, besides the current set of invitees.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. So it seems that we don't have any questions. And with that, I think we have a wrap. And we would like to thank you, Branko, for being with us one more time. It's always a pleasure to have you. And we thank you everyone for participating and for actually sharing with us your questions and what you want to view in the feedback forms that we share afterwards, because this helps getting a better understanding of what your needs are and help you with what you want to do in your everyday work. So we are planning a lot of things to do in the coming months. Athena Research Center in collaboration with the University of Cyprus, and you'll be receiving more invitations soon for that. I hope you have a good week. This was the first. This was a good start of the week, I think. Let's resume.
Yeah, pleasure was mine as well, and we are, don't hesitate to contact us as you need. Cheers.
Thank you, Branko.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.